Welcome to our Galapagos pre-expedition information briefing from HX. We are excited to be here with you, and it is my pleasure to turn it over to our Master of Ceremonies today, Tudor Morgan. So Tudor, take it away.
Thank you very much, Lee, and welcome everyone. Welcome to this Galapagos webinar. We have about 300 people registered and tune in for this webinar, and that's for people joining us in the next 6 months. So everybody here is signed up. So the intention here is to give you information and to prepare you for your journey to the Galapagos, Ecuador, and Peru if you're doing that. So today we've got a great lineup of speakers from myself working in the HX office in London, Verena, who's our chief scientist based in Switzerland, but also on the ground in Ecuador we have Ramiro, who is our expedition leader based working on Santa Cruz 2, and also Pancho, who is our regional travel expert, who's everything previous expedition leader in the Galapagos, but also knows everything South America. So we've got a fantastic team to share. Our aim is to talk for 35 minutes, hopefully not too much longer. We've got a lot of ground to cover, but we'll try and aim to go through the essential information. In this time, we will talk about the short introduction to the Galapagos, the activities, what to take, our nature, science and education program, and the pre and post activities of getting you to and from the Galapagos. In terms of a trip to the Galapagos is like no other. We often refer to it as our third pole. It's obviously on the equator, but it's really where we see evolution in action, where Charles Darwin obviously made the place very famous to us in the West with his evolution of species, but just a place that is breathtaking and where the animals have no concern about human interaction, and it is one of the most protected and well-managed areas in the world in terms of wildlife. So a trip, obviously you are all signed up, so I don't want to spend too long on this, but the Galapagos are a group of islands situated 1,000 kilometers or 620 miles off the west coast of Ecuador. There are 13 major islands with 6 smaller and many more islands there. So it's really made up of this amazing group of islands sitting in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. There are two main airports, which on 2 of the bigger islands. And to get to the Galapagos, all the flights have to come from the Ecuadorian mainland. So all our trips involve at least one night in Ecuador before you join. So that's a way of a short introduction. And I would like to hand over to our expedition leader of this amazing ship, Santa Cruz 2. I would just say before I ask Ramiro to talk is that we do have a partnership with Metropolitan Touring, a long established and the best company in Ecuador and the Galapagos that have been operating for many years. To operate in the Galapagos, you have to be an Ecuadorian operator with Ecuadorian and Galapagos crew. So we are in partnership and a part owner of Metropolitan Touring. So that is our relationship, and they run the ship for us on a deal. So I'll hand over to you, Ramiro, to give us more insights into life on board.
Thank you, Tudor. Hi, good morning. My name is Ramiro Tamala. I'm the expedition leader on board the Santa Cruz 2. As you can see on the picture, we have a beautiful ship, big enough for where we have to go, small enough so we can reach most of the islands and get to do everything we set out to do. One of the differences between our ship in Galapagos and other ships is that everything is done with Zodiacs, with smaller boats. We don't come to a big dock. Zodiacs come to pick us up and bring us to the ship. It's a 90 people ship. We have a nice, ample, big restaurant for all the guests. We have up to 60 crew on the ship. We have spaces, great spaces to hang out and learn, like our science center, for example. We have observation decks where we do whale watching, bird watching. We have a panorama bar where we can enjoy some drinks. We have an outer part of that panorama bar when we have sunset cocktails. We have activities that leave from the ship, like kayaking, paddle boarding, glass bottom boats. And one of the cool things about Galapagos is that we don't depend on outside operators. We operate everything ourselves. All the Zodiacs come with us, all the kayaks come with us, glass bottom boat, paddle boards. So we operate from the ship itself. We have snorkeling activities. All the equipment is also delivered on board, masks, snorkels. And one of the nice things about Galapagos, the other day somebody asked me, how many expeditions do I have to cancel? How many landings do I have to cancel? In 24 years, maybe 2 expeditions have been canceled, or 2 landings, because the weather stays almost the same year round. There's a little change in temperature, as you can see in the slide. From December to June, we have what we call the warm season. A little bit of rain, blue skies, great for animals on land. Finches will be mating, land iguanas will be mating. All land animals are thriving. So if you're into this, come during this time of the year. From June to December, we experience the colder season of Galapagos, we call it, water temperature of about 19, 21, 22 degrees Celsius, which might not be so cold for most people. And this time of the year, we have a little bit more covered skies, but it's great for marine life. This is when we see whales, we see dolphins, and it's great to go. Snorkeling is great throughout the year, but especially this time of the year, we get to see baby sea lions and all the youngs in the water. It's an amazing experience to see. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was on board. We got to see killer whales with our guests on the Zodiacs with their babies, and they were teaching them how to hunt. So amazing. During the expeditions, we do hikes. We have expeditions on Zodiacs or boats, kayaking, paddleboarding, hikes guided. We have to be accompanied by a national guide. For those of you who love exercise, we have a day where we go cycling up in the mountains of Santa Cruz. And we also get to not only see Galapagos, not only see the animals, but we get to know what happens behind the scenes. We have a visit to the Darwin Foundation where we learn about the projects. We as a company also support a lot of the projects going on in Galapagos. So you get to have a nice connection of what you're seeing with what goes behind the scenes here in Galapagos. So great opportunity. As you can see on the slides, as I mentioned, also all the operations are done by Zodiacs. We have Zodiacs that carry up to 20 people, 16 guests, 1 guide, a driver, and always a helper. And we have 2 types of landing in Galapagos. Dry landings, as you can see in the first picture, where hiking shoes, tennis shoes are great when we have walks on rocks or we land directly on rocks. And then we have on the other side, the wet landings, for which we actually recommend to have water shoes or any type of thin footwear to land. And then usually after the landing, we have to change into walking shoes because there's always a hike and there's always an adventure waiting for us after the wet landings. So that's exactly what the operations will look like on rocks and on the other side on the beaches for the landings. Super important to come prepare with the right footwear for the landing. We always say that about 60% of the enjoyment of a hike or a visit depends on the shoes you're wearing. And as you can see, a typical day in Galapagos, this can actually vary. We have usually breakfast at 7 in the morning, 8 o'clock, we're ready to go out. Most of the days we have hikes for about 2 to 3 hours, right? Then we come back to the ship, and before lunch, we always have an activity, either snorkeling, kayaking, paddleboarding, or a trip with a glass bottom boat. We're We have permits in Galapagos, so usually from 6 in the morning to 12 midday, and then from 2 in the afternoon to 6 p.m. So we really got to take advantage of.
Oops, did we just lose Ramiro?
I think we did.
I think
think
maybe so.
Will. Should we just give him a couple of seconds, see if he comes back? If not, then we're almost there. Then we can take over if he's dropped out. But okay, we'll carry on. I'll carry on for a bit, and Verena, maybe I'll bring you in on some of the wildlife, and we've also got Pancho that can chip in. As you can see, a day on Santa Cruz 2 is very busy. There's a lot going on, and the team on board keep you the activity variety from the walking, from snorkeling, from the opportunity to go kayaking or stand-up paddleboarding. There's all those type of things. But the thing to note is that you are on the equator, so you get the daylight is the operating window for what you do is from 6 in the morning until 6 at night, every day of the year.
Sorry about that internet connection.
Yeah,
but
that's okay.
Yes. So
that's what happens.
Whole itinerary. This is only a sample. Some days, we'll have beautiful weather. We go for a free pre-breakfast walk. We actually get to go outside and see the sun rising. We get to see the animals waking up. Full of adventures and options. Yes. Then we can go to the next slide. And I think that goes back to Tudor, right?
Okay, yeah, we can do that. As Ramiro mentioned, then one of the important things is footwear. On board the ship, it is very relaxed. We have no formal dress code. But having things to change into to make yourself comfortable is important. So obviously fairly active in the heat during the day. So coming back on board, it can feel a little bit cooler. So having some layers or a shirt to put on. Many people wear shorts throughout the whole trip in the Galapagos. But again, whatever you're comfortable with. The mixture of footwear from lightweight hiking boots, sandals, but also water or rubber shoes that you can access the water, that you don't mind getting wet. But we want to make sure you're comfortable when you go for a hike. Of course, sunglasses, pretty obvious. Sun protection with a sun hat and sun cream, and lip salve, important. We do have an onboard photographer that will be able to work with you on how best to use your camera, but it will also provide you with a portfolio of photos at the end in the term of the voyage log. So you will get some photos, but of course remember your own camera, memory cards, batteries, etc. Power on the ship is US 2-prong based, the 110 volt. Also remember that there's a lot of water sports there, so some swimwear, and if you do have a prescription mask, then that can be useful, because the underwater sea life is absolutely incredible. So well worth that. If you ask any expedition team member, and if you've seen any of the webinars, we always say binoculars are the thing to bring. They're the sort of extended eyes to see, particularly from the ship. But on land side in the Galapagos, the wildlife is so close that you've got to step back. And Ramiro, maybe I'll just ask you to just talk a little bit about your role as a national park guide as well as expedition leader, and how you manage the landings.
Yes. Well, in Galapagos, not everybody can be a guide. You have to be a Galapaginian licensed by the Galapagos National Park. And it's very restrictive. We have paths, and we are only allowed to walk within them. And you always have to be escorted by a national park guide. And this is done so that we can actually experience wildlife right in front of us. Animals, the way it's been handled in Galapagos, everything controlled, everything supervised. It allows the animals to move freely around us, to really not even care about humans. So we actually get to see, sometimes escorting the guests in the allowed areas, we get to see sea lions giving birth right in front of us, or a hawk just eating the placenta of a baby sea lion, because the animals sense that guests and guides respect them. They have nothing to be afraid of. And that's one of the most beautiful things. That's why being escorted by a national park ranger, a national park guide, is so important. And it actually adds to the experience. You have a person always with you, knowledgeable about the area, that can tell you pretty much everything about everything. All the national park guides are generalists, so they will know about birds, they will know about geology, they will know about biology, they will know about plants. So it comes in handy to be escorted by a national park guide.
A really extensive knowledge, and that guiding is fantastic. Slightly different to if you've traveled with us in other areas of the world, but it is very controlled by the national park, and all the guides are approved national park guides, and they have a responsibility to the national park. So yeah, really incredible to be able to experience the wildlife, and it is, as I said at the start, incredibly well managed wildlife area. So well worth it. In terms of medical information and travel documents, then like all travel, then it's very good to bring some medication in your hand luggage. We do have on board a doctor and a medical center, but they're not carrying prescription drugs. So please do bring your own prescription drugs for your trip. As Ramiro shared, the climate and conditions are pretty good. If you are very sensitive to seasickness, then would recommend bringing some remedies for that, but they're also available on board. Flying into Quito and Cusco, as Pancho will share at the end, they are high altitude. So some people do feel shortness of breath, but it's really important to drink a lot of not hard spirits, but to drink water. The odd beer is quite thirst quenching, but yeah, drinking a lot is really good. Yellow fever is recommended, particularly for trips into the Amazon, but it's not mandatory. But it is recommended. But we also recognise yellow fever vaccinations, if you're older, are not recommended by the World Health Organization. But if you're concerned, then certainly it's worth having the yellow fever as a precaution. You will receive your final travel documents about 1 month before departure when you pay your final bill. So we issue them when you've paid up. So there's those elements. What I would like now, I would just like Ramiro to just talk about the amazing wildlife, and maybe Ramiro, we've got 3 itineraries, and our guests in the webinar may be on different itineraries and the mix, but they're all very well crafted itineraries to get the best out of the different areas in the Galapagos. So if you could just talk a little bit about the wildlife, that would be brilliant. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Tudor. The 3 itineraries have actually been carefully selected and picked out. As a company, as you mentioned, Tudor, we've been well established, and we've created great partnerships and friendships with the local governments, with the scientists here. So we've been able to actually kind of pick and select where we want to go, and itineraries have been approved. And wildlife everywhere. On the 3 itineraries, you have on all of them, you have most of the big 15, the most iconic animals that we can actually see. You got tortoises, giant tortoises, you got blue-footed boobies, you have marine iguanas. 2 of those itineraries, we get to see the Galapagos penguin, one of the most unique animals in the world, an animal that should not be here on the equator, but yet it is. And it's nice to see. It doesn't matter which itinerary you pick. Every itinerary has wildlife. Every itinerary guarantees that you will have a face-to-face experience with the animals. Galapagos, I always say, it's not a vacation, it's not a tour, it's an experience that everybody should have a chance to live, and you will have a chance pretty soon to be here with us. And the wildlife is just, I mean, you can look at pictures, you can look at videos, but you just have to be there. One of the things I always say about the animals is that the animals are so innocent and curious, and they want to come meet you as well. So Some of the animals that we will be seeing are the iconic giant tortoises. Galapagos does carry its name because of the species of giant tortoises here in Galapagos. The land iguanas, marine iguanas are everywhere. And probably one of the differences between Galapagos and other destinations in the world is that the animals are so close. Since we talked about earlier that because of how the national park is managed, animals are not afraid of you. And animals live and nest everywhere. We are the guests on the island. So when we come to an island, they might be nesting on the path. So we kind of have to deviate a little bit away from it. But just be prepared. Besides your packing list and all the things you have to bring, be prepared to have a nice close encounter with the best, the most unafraid wildlife that you can probably imagine. And that's what Galapagos is. That is what Galapagos animals will be for you.
And through through the visits, and I've been very lucky to have been on a few trips with you, Ramiro, is seeing that the evolution in action on different islands, and also the marine iguana. It's breathtaking. So certainly wildlife everywhere, and you've got to be careful not to trip over things.
And I would say, make sure you don't miss a moment. Make sure that you take advantage of all the activities, because an activity missed could be a wow moment. I remember a couple of years ago, we were looking with some guests on one of the islands, and we get to see a snake that comes out and grabs a lizard, right? And it's eating it, and just a minute later, a hawk comes and picks up the snake. And that happened within 15 minutes. And we were all like, had we missed those 15 minutes, we would have missed an amazing show of wildlife. And that's what Galapagos is.
Amazing. And then in terms of regulations and protection and how we keep this place pristine?
Yes, we do have a lot of regulations in Galapagos. Some of the fresh ones are the avian flu regulations. The government is very concerned, first of all, about your safety, also about the safety of the animals in Galapagos. So regulation of the national park, we have to be careful to not bring anything onto the islands and not transport anything from one island to the other. So every type of footwear has to be disinfected upon coming back to the ship. We have hoses in the back. We also have a mat with a special disinfectant for the shoes. We have to make sure that we don't carry anything in our clothings. We're not mandated to wear any specific type of shoes, but the shoes that we bring to the islands must be completely disinfected before we set sails onto the next islands. We have to be always disinfecting our hands before we go onto the ship, before we go onto the restaurants, just to keep Galapagos healthy, just to keep you healthy. And all the park rangers, the guides on board, will be the ones that will be in charge of making sure all these regulations are fulfilled.
Brilliant. Fantastic, and a beautiful frigate bird there. I'll hand over now to Verena to talk about the Science and Education Program.
Thank you, Tudor. So yes, as Ramiro said, the person who will be delivering all these amazing educational experiences to you will be the national guides from the Galapagos Park. We will try to collect samples, water samples, for example, on every trip, so that we get the opportunity to have a closer look at the marine life, ocean life, with the help of our microscopes and interpretation by the park guides. As Ramiro also already mentioned, all the visits to the islands will be guided by the guides themselves, so divided into smaller groups that will each have one guide assigned to them. Ramiro already said this is a very personalized experience on each landing. And they will also run a few citizen science projects with you. Can I have the next slide, please, Tudor? So again, glass bottom boats is also available for you to go and see the marine life. We have, as in our other ships, some museum type exhibits that will be used by the team also to do a more in-depth interpretation so that you understand better the animals that live in these amazing islands. We will have sessions from the deck to observe the orcas that Ramiro has previously talked about, and every other wildlife that is in the vicinity of the ship. And here you see Ramiro as well, taking pictures to upload to one of the citizen science projects that we use with our guests, which is iNaturalist. And talking about citizen science, we have here a collection of QR codes that will allow you to download in advance the applications that will be used for the different citizen science projects. We have the iNaturalist, we have SekiDisc, we have Shark Count, Globe Observer, eBird, and Merlin ID. If you like birds, please do download the Merlin ID application. It is an amazing help to identify birds. And even if you are not seeing the bird physically, you can record the sound of these birds, and the application will help you identify it based on the sounds, on the songs from the birds. And can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. We also have a recommended pre-reading list for you. The Galápagos, A Lifetime in Galápagos is a book by Tui de Roy. She moved with her family to Galápagos when she was only a child and developed a love for the islands, became a photographer, and has dedicated her life to creating guides. So you will find all the beautiful pictures of the amazing wildlife in Galápagos. Charles Darwin, as you know, part of his theory of evolution was the experience he had during the trip of the voyage on the Beagle was fundamental for the development of his thinking. And this illustrated version is a very nice way to discovering or to understanding his thinking. And last but not least, the book by Michael Jackson, not the singer, but this book is also a very nice collection of it encompasses everything. It encompasses the population, it's a comprehensive history of the islands, the colonization. It also has information on the wildlife, on flowers, animals, and so on and so on. So these three are a very good starting point for you to familiarize yourself with the Galapagos. Over to you again, Tudor. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Verena. Plenty to always learning, I think, is the thing. So I'll hand over to Pancho now, who's the real sort of expert in all things here, to share a bit about the mainland and how amazing not only Ecuador but also Peru and part of Peru is. So over to you, Pancho.
Oh, thank you, Tudor. I'm absolutely honored to be part of this panel and glad to be sharing this one with Verena as well as Ramiro, who are experts in the area as well. And what we can see about the beauty of South America is that it includes great destinations, great landscapes from the fjords of Patagonia all the way into the east or west coast of South America. And of course, naturally, the Galapagos, and plenty of culture in the mainland of both Ecuador and Peru, which is what we'll cover in just about a minute or so. So one of the things that we know is that, of course, Galapagos is part of Ecuador, and Ecuador and Peru are border countries or brother, sister countries right there in the region. And arriving into Ecuador implies that you will arrive to the beautiful city of Quito, where there is an international airport. And as Tudor mentioned before, this is a high altitude city. Quito, it's settled right at 2,800 meters above sea level. That's a little over 9,000 feet. And that is going to be your starting point, if you will, for the adventure. One of the things that makes Quito so interesting is that it's in a valley, and you can see that in the picture, surrounded by some of the most outstanding, magical volcanoes of the Andes. And that adds a great value when it comes to seeing the geography of this area. And of course, the culture of the city, embellished right here since the 1500s, comes as we get to explore the historic center of the city. This area of Quito was inscribed in the World Heritage List of UNESCO back in 1978. And coupled with that idea of being right there in Quito, we must know that we are right at the equator, the middle of the world. And there is a monument about 30 minutes north of the city of Quito where the French geodesic mission back in the 1700s did incredible measurements, not to find where the middle of the world was. They knew that already, but to understand that the Earth was not actually a perfect circle, but rather a bit of a grapefruit shape, if you will. And so measurements were needed, scientific measurements were needed in order to come with those conclusions. And so seeing that, the middle of the world monument, and getting your novelty picture of being in the Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere just about the same time, adds value to the great city of Quito, and the fact that you are right there in Ecuador. Now, what also shines about Ecuador, it's biodiversity, its natural setup. We know that it's crossed from north to south by the Andes, but east of the Andes, you have a bit of biodiversity. West of the Andes, a different set of biodiversity. And when you are to the west of the Andes, in the tropical forests of that area, you find a place that you can add it as a option on your trip, before going to Galapagos, and of course before doing anything else in the trip, to an area called Mashpi, where Mashpi Lodge is located. And this is the birthplace of biodiversity of Ecuador. Not only is it a great lodge, and it's just about 3 hours away from the city of Quito by road, but it's the place of finding incredible wildlife in diverse activities that you can do. Plenty of hiking, swimming in the waterfalls and in places nearby, and understanding a bit of biodiversity in the tropical rainforest. That's outstanding to be seen, again, about 3 hours away from Quito, at a place called Mashpi, where Mashpi Lodge is located. So that adds value automatically. Now, remember, this is to the west side of the Andes as we get lower and lower and lower into elevation. If we happen to fly to the east of the Andes, that's to the opposite end, we will find the headwaters of the Amazon basin, which is shared by 5 countries in South America, Ecuador being one of them. In that area, in the Amazon rainforest, of course, conditions change dramatically, because you are going to be part of the tributaries that eventually go down to the Amazon River, but also surrounded by both culture and nature of the Amazon rainforest. So that adds value. In the Sacha Lodge area, where this incredible lodge is located, it's very accessible. This is a funny flight, if you will. It only takes 35 minutes. I mean, it's longer to go through security than the actual flight time that takes you from Quito right into the headwaters of the Amazon. And of course, you only need to go over the Andes, and you're right there in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. And the lodge provides a great set of activities, very diverse programs, early, late, walks in this and that, and swim in that beautiful lagoon that you saw a little before. So those are things that you can add as a post activity to your Galapagos experience, which Ramiro coined it very well by saying it is an experience. Well, the rest of South America, it's also a wonderful experience that can enhance the value of being right at this region. Now, if we happen to be exploring more of South America and Ecuador, then we need to jump into Peru. And Peru is also well known because it holds Machu Picchu. But Machu Picchu is not everything about Peru. It's just one very small and important component, no doubt. But Cusco is going to be the arriving city before we get to Machu Picchu. Now, Cusco is also a high-altitude city, just like Quito, but a bit higher, 3,400 meters above sea level. That's a little over 11,000 feet of elevation is what Cusco will provide you. And it doesn't matter. You'll notice at any place in South America, if you're in love, your heartbeat is going to be great. But at these places of high altitude, you're going to see that high heart rate is going to go a bit stronger than the other places. But that's your welcoming location at the imperial city of Cusco, the gateway, if you will, to Machu Picchu. And to reach Machu Picchu, which you can do as a pre or post tour, you need to go there by train. A lot of people think that for some reason Machu Picchu is right next to Cusco. No, but there are some logistics involved. And the train from Cusco all the way down to Machu Picchu will bring you to first a final stop called Aguas Calientes, or warm waters, if you will. And you can see the route right there on the slide, about 2 hours from Cusco right into Aguas Calientes. And before we get to Machu Picchu, we need to take a bus from the Aguas Calientes station, and that zigzag road that you see right there, beautifully done by the Peruvians, will take you up to the rim or up to the edge of Machu Picchu. In that area, Aguas Calientes, all the greenery that you see there, is just a little over 2,000 feet of meters of elevation. That's about 6,700 feet above sea level. So you go from high elevation into a lower elevation, and that's going to be your access to Machu Picchu. And of course, once we get to the imperial city, to the citadel of Machu Picchu, we'll be surrounded by incredible landscape, and of course the nature, the geographical setup, and the culture. The Inca culture blessed this area from earlier in time. So make sure you consider these options, pre and post, things that you can do in Ecuador, things that you can do in Peru. Make the best out of them, because they will provide you great gastronomy, great nature, great culture, fun rides, lots of interesting geography, and of course the great services of local operators in the area, and a bit of heritage of South America in either of these places that you travel to. So that is what I wanted to share with you in terms of pre and post options that you can do both in Ecuador and or Peru, whichever your options are. And there are great programs and a great addition to the Galapagos experience that was mentioned before. So that's it from my end. Tudor, Verena, and Ramiro, great to be with you on this panel.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Pancho. That's great insights. Obviously, as we're talking to all of you that have booked, obviously there are these options. You may have booked them already, but we're also aware that changing flights can be a challenge. So, but we wanted to just make sure we covered all the bases of things you might have booked. But if you're really inspired now to make a change, then I'm sure our customer service team may be able to help, but don't want to set the expectation that we can change everything. The contact details for our service teams are here on this slide. And again, I think this is going to be shared in the chat. And you should already have these because you've made the booking, but we just wanted to make those there as well. Before just turning over to Q&A, we've had a team, Jesse and Olga, have been answering questions as we've been going in the background, but we'll hand over to them shortly. I'll stop sharing screen. But as part of that, at the end of the webinar, then we will, like all these things, we'll send out a survey for you to enable us to give some feedback on how we can improve next time. But what I would say is I've been super lucky to have gone to the Galapagos a few times and experience the biodiversity in Ecuador, and it's just absolutely stunning. So you're in for a real treat, and we really look forward to welcoming you on board and welcoming you to Ecuador. So we'll hand over to questions and answers. I'll stop sharing my screen and ask Jesse to come on, maybe Olga to come on camera, and then we can field questions, and Pancho, Ramiro, and Verena and myself will be standing by to answer your questions. Thank you very much, Jesse.
Thank you, Tudor. Thank you, everyone else. This has been very enlightening. I've not had the chance to get to Galapagos yet. I'm even more excited than ever and very envious of everyone else on the other end. We've had a lot of really, really good questions, and I've saved a few back. I think Pancho, you'll be good for some of them, and some. Ramiro, thank you for going through and answering some of the more esoteric ones for us. I'm going to bring some of those back up, though, just for a little clarification. For instance, the reef-approved sunscreen. Can you elaborate on just sunscreen requirements, what you recommend?
Yes, there's actually new regulation from the national park where up until last year any type of sunblock was allowed to be worn in Galapagos, but this year they just implemented them, and it goes along international regulations as far as reef sunblock. There are certain components that are no longer allowed in Galapagos, like because you go in the water and have close contact with the animals. Those components we can make available. Exactly the names, I don't remember the names, they're too long. But they have to be in alliance with reef approved sunblocks. Not any sunblock will do anymore.
Is there a local brand that they could pick up in Quito on their way in?
There should be. Maybe Pancho knows a little bit more than that, because there is a great variety of sunblocks that are environmentally friendly, and because of that availability, the national park actually put in this regulation. But as far as Quito goes, I'm pretty sure, Pancho, maybe you have any suggestions?
Well, my personal suggestion is that you're going to get back at home far more options than in Ecuador, although you can get some right in here. The chemical component that we're trying to avoid worldwide because of its impact in reefs is oxybenzone. That's the number one component that we're trying to beat when it comes to reef action. So any brand that you see out there that says reef safe sunblock will do the job, because obviously oxybenzone has been taken out. So that's the best advice that we can provide. And although there are shops right here that may carry them, believe me, back at home, whether that is Germany, the UK, the US, the variety of those reef safe options will be greater than in here. And then, by buying them there back at home, you have more time to explore.
Yes, thank you, guys. So when it comes to snorkeling, guests are able to bring some of their own snorkeling equipment. Is there anything that you would recommend they use that's ours rather than their own? Can they bring, say, weights if they prefer weights, their own wetsuit?
Yes, snorkeling equipment, as mentioned, we do have on the ship flippers, wetsuit shorties, 3 millimeters, masks, snorkels. As put in the packing list, we actually recommend, if you wear prescription goggles, to bring them, because we don't have prescription goggles. And I always say most of the things in Ecuador are standard. Adult standard masks, children standard masks. Sometimes or facial features are very different. And even the adult mask might fit on the face on the sides, but not on your front. So some guests have had difficulty. I always say, if you are an avid snorkeler and you have your own mask, something that you picked out and bought and fits you well, bring that with you. And we have the rest of the equipment to complement. Because if you happen to just have special features or anything, you might miss out on a great opportunity. So I always say, if you're an avid snorkeler and you have your favorite things that fit perfectly, I would say bring those with you.
Excellent.
And what I would just add is that, from my few trips, that snorkeling has been a real highlight that I didn't think it would be. And it is really popular. So, the advice I had before I went the first time was, go snorkeling every opportunity, and that advice is 100% correct. The marine life is stunning. So yeah, it's something.
A lot, just as much underwater as on.
Yeah,
as above. Excellent. Okay, here's a great question. What are the onboard temperatures like?
Well, we do have air conditioning on the ship. So when we have really nice, warm, hot days outside, it'll be tempered. The temperatures, we adjust the temperatures. For example, during the day, we have to make it a little bit cooler. But during the night, of course, we will lower the temperature. So all the rooms and all the public areas are kept at a comfortable temperature. Not too cold, not too warm. We do have to play with those throughout the day, but there's a way to regulate them. Even in the cabins, in the rooms, some people may prefer it warmer. We can make them warmer. Some people may prefer them colder. We can do that as well.
So there are individual thermostats in the rooms, or
in the rooms, yes. In the rooms, every room has individual thermostats. On the public areas, we regulate from the engine room the temperatures, but they can be regulated.
Excellent. Fantastic. Let's see, what else do we have? So you had recommended bringing boots and shoes. When you say boots, are you talking like really serious hiking boots or more of the lightweight, mid-height, breathable hiking boots?
I'd recommend hiking shoes, hiking boots, whatever you want to call it. Perhaps
Mhm.
not the super heavy duty, like moon landscape
Yeah.
boots,
Okay.
but we do have lava rocks. We do have lava fields.
Mhm.
They need to be sturdy enough, good traction on the bottom. And also there are some areas like when we go to the Darwin station, we don't need hiking boots. For those, sneakers would be enough. Comfortable walking shoes. They still have a little bit of everything, but I would say both. Because if you only bring hiking shoes on some of the more difficult walks on the lava, you might miss out because your shoes will not be enough. So I always say, again, medium range hiking shoes. They are nowadays medium range, breathable, light enough boots that are sturdy enough for a landscape like Galapagos. But I would say both.
Okay. So something to cover a wider range of landscapes. There's no one size fits all, so to speak.
On that
Pancho
note,
wanted to
Jesse,
chip in. Yeah.
what I can say on the pre and post tour, which is the logical question after
Mhm.
the explanation on Galapagos, is, well, what happens if I go to Mashpee or the Amazon?
Yeah.
What do I do in terms of boots? Well, those facilities, whether it's Mashpee or the Amazon, do have Wellington type rubber boots, and they will be provided for guests on their daily outings. And so you don't have to ruin your shoes, if you will. Some walks are easy and, your shoes will be fine. But in most walks, those facilities, those lodges will be providing rubber boots for added comfort and, of course, safety as we walk in muddy areas and things like that.
Okay.
Great.
Now, where do we stand on insect repellent? Bring it, don't bring it, particular brands, chemicals to avoid?
Yeah, I would say bring it. We don't have regulations as to mosquito repellents. There are many different varieties. Like Pancho mentioned, it's probably a better idea to bring them from home, something that you like to buy. But I always say bring it because especially during the rainy season, when it rains, lots of insects will come out. And it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Okay.
I
Yes.
totally
Okay.
agree with that. And although Galapagos changes, easily in that regard, in the pre and post tours, when you go to the Amazon or the tropical rainforest, the insect repellent will give you additional coverage and, of course, additional protection in amidst the fact that you are surrounded by the most biodiverse insect world of the planet. So yeah, they are right there. So the insect repellent recommendation, it should be taken as good advice, and take your favorite brand. Most things are deep free anyway, and so you'll be fine with any brand that you prefer at home. Now I noticed that there are some good brands that provide both insect repellent protection as well as sunblock protection at the same time. Bullfrog and things like that. They'll be quite beneficial if you're able to get those.
Excellent. Thank you, Pancho. So moving a little more broader for everyone, when it comes to being in Quito or being in the islands or joining a pre or post program, how much cash should people bring, or are credit cards widely accepted?
Although Ramiro can broaden that area on the ship, of course, credit cards will be accepted on the ship. But the ship philosophy is rather simple. You pay your bills at the end of the trip. So that kind of solves the issue right there. Now, what's interesting, and lots of people don't even think of this as a great benefit of being in Ecuador, is that Ecuador's currency is the US dollar. So you move with dollars around, and of course you use your credit cards and cash if you happen to have it. We always recommend to have some amount of cash, because some places may not necessarily accept credit cards, small novelty shops and things like that. Or, if you go for ice cream or something like that, yeah, they won't accept credit cards, and some cash will be welcome. But of course, credit cards are widely accepted: American Express, Visa, MasterCard, Diners Club, Discover Card. they are widely accepted in Ecuador, and of course in Peru. I think Ecuador brings the convenience that the US dollar is the local currency. And so every number that you see around is already in US dollars. We dropped our forward currency back in 1999.
All right, excellent.
And life on board, is now all inclusive. So there's no need on board to dip into your pockets. You've already paid. But of course, when you go on excursions in the islands, then you may want some cash if you're buying local artisan products.
How much opportunity is there to spend money in the islands?
Both the 2 itineraries out of the 3, we stop in towns. When we go up to the mountains, we see the Darwin station. So there's a day that we spend in the cities, and there's an opportunity to support the local community, go shopping. Most of the stores will take credit cards, some of them just cash. So I would say bring a little bit of cash just in case you see something you like and you want to buy it from that specific store. But like I said, most of the times credit cards will be accepted. ATMs, we do have ATMs if people need to withdraw money. Sometimes the ATMs are funny. They might, put a limit, the Ecuadorian ATMs, on a card, even though in your own country you don't have a set limit. But I always say just bring a little bit of cash just in case.
Okay.
And would you say like $50 would be enough?
Probably a couple $100. I would say a good $200-300 just in case.
Really?
Yes.
Ramiro is very good for the local economy.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can tell where Ramiro lives. Yeah.
Okay. So what sort of cash in Peru? Do they have a local currency, or are they also on USD? I've not looked that up.
They'll be exchanging dollars or any international currency for the local Peruvian currency, which is the sol.
Okay. All right. Will they exchange it in the stores, or can they pay with USD and get change?
In the places that the post tours are included, most places will accept dollars anyway, because they're very well based on tourism as the way of going. Some specific shops may not accept them, but they'll be gladly change it into local currency. Hotels will also do the job of exchanging money, but perhaps the rate will not be the most reasonable one. But that is a way of saving you time on that one. Then of course there are some exchange houses that will deliver the service of exchanging money to local currency. But there are easy way. Most places in both Cusco and Machu Picchu will gladly accept US dollars.
Fantastic. Thank you, Pancho. And I have one last question I would like to ask. So we've covered, the pre-post programs, what it's like in Quito, what it's like on the ship. But what's it like on the in-betweens? Can you describe the embarkation and debarkation process, beginning and end of the voyage? What can guests expect?
Well, the first day is quite busy. Arriving at the airport, you have the team of naturalists who will be receiving you, transporting the luggage to the ship. As soon as we get to the dock, Zodiacs will be waiting for us, or pangas as we locally call them. They will bring us to the ship about 10 minutes by Zodiac. Then we're greeted by the staff, the hotel manager. We proceed to do the check-in, assign people to cabins. Right after that, lunch will be served, so people can enjoy a nice buffet lunch in our Beagle restaurant. Right after lunch, we have an introductory mandatory briefing in which we explain guests about the ship, the facilities, also the rules and regulations of the national park, and the itinerary for the afternoon, because as soon as they arrive, they will have a visit that afternoon. So we will be moving the ship to a national park area. Right after that briefing, we usually have the mandatory emergency drill. And right after that, we go out to the islands. The thing is, as mentioned before, we have limited time and we want people to see Galapagos on the go the first day. And usually that helps guests have an idea of what the next few days will be. And again, because Galapagos it's a destination that very few people in the world that dream about coming get to come, we have to make it count. So when you come, you have to make it count as well. And that's how the operations are arranged.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, having been through the system and in both sides, that from through the whole process, from arriving in Quito, then there's HX staff there to help, I'll say, guide and handhold through to hotels, back to the airport, so that you're well looked after through the whole process, through to when you arrive at in the Galapagos to get on the ship. So there's always HX staff available to support you in that process. I think I'm conscious of time, but one of the things I know, a question that's been coming up or has come up is in terms of fitness and how fit you need to be. Of course, all our activities involve activities, hence the name. Part of that, getting in and out of the boats. The teams on board the ship really look after you, and safety is our highest priority. So helping you in and out of the boats, giving those safety briefings, showing you where to sit, helping you in and out of the boats if needed in a safe way. So there's that element. In terms of how fit you need to be, then I would say on the more sort of active areas, then getting in and out of the Zodiacs, one of the things is, can you get in and out of a chair on your own? It's kind of as simple as that. And then in terms of the guided walks, they are guided with the National Park guides. As part of that, they will assess the team, but also all activities, as on all our ships, it's up to you. You choose. The activity will be well described. If you'd like to do something else, then often Ramiro and the team would say, if you'd like to just sit on the beach for half an hour, then that's absolutely fine. Take it in. We want you to experience the Galapagos and all our destinations in the best possible way. So, of course, we're not going to push you to do things you don't want to do. We want you to get the best experience. So if you can get in there, and there's always staff there to help and look after you. With that, Jesse, any more?
I have one more very important thing I'd like us to touch on for the last 2 minutes, and that's safety in traveling in Ecuador, Quito, Guayaquil, Peru. How safe is it for our guests to be traveling in these areas?
I think the logical answer to that is practice common sense. Don't do things that you normally wouldn't do at home. Say, walk out of your hotel at 11 p.m. by yourself with your camera around your neck. Probably we don't do that at home. Might as well don't do it in either Ecuador or Peru. So common sense in that regard. Now, all the programs pre and post when you are in cities like Cusco, Quito, and so forth, are managed by the local operator and the HX staff. So you are not only well escorted, but you're very well briefed in terms of what to do, what to take, what not to take, and that sort of thing, and the timings that happen at each location. So you're very well taken care of in that regard. When it comes to Galapagos, and of course anything in the Amazon or Mashpi, nothing to worry about, because you are immersed in probably some of the safest locations of the planet, surrounded by forests and surrounded by sea lions, iguanas, and wonderful staff. Yeah, you're in top hands.
Brilliant.
Fantastic. Does anyone else have anything to add about anything at all? Wonderful. Oh, Ramiro.
Yes. One last thing. When you come to Galapagos, besides seeing the animals, doing snorkeling like Tudor discovered, taking pictures, participating in activities, I always recommend guests, do not forget to be. Take a moment to just sit down and take it all in and hear the waves, look at the animals, and just put yourself in that position where you can just be and observe, and that will complement your experience.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. And you will see Ramiro on board, or his reliever, his opposite number, Esteban, our other expedition leader, who's on board right at the moment. So you will see one of them with the guided teams. So I'm sure they look forward to welcoming you on board. Lee, anything else from you from an admin point of view before we close out?
Thank you. Just like to mention that we do have a survey that will pop up at the end of the webinar when we conclude, and we would appreciate feedback on whether how we did today, and also that we have been recording and we'll make sure the replay gets out to everyone. So that's all from my end.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone. Have an amazing trip to Ecuador and the Galapagos and South America. Thank you so much for listening.
Bye. Enjoy your trip.
Safe travels.
Bye. Thank you.
And with that, we'll conclude our webinar. Goodbye, everyone.